we're all taking a little bit of hope out of the results today. Just 8 new cases from more than 44,000 tests. Surely we can take some comfort from that.
It was, to use an old phrase, a beautiful set of numbers. When you have 44,000 people being tested, and can we just take a moment to marvel at that achievement? There aren't many places in the world where you can get that number of people tested in that short period of time, to identify only 8 people and to have all the track and tracing done within 12 hours. It's quite an achievement by the New South Wales Department of Health, the New South Wales government, and I think that's why some of us hope beyond hope that we might be able to save Christmas this year.
Just want to go to you first personally on a personal note. Have you had to undergo testing, you're in quarantine, etc.? Talk us through how your week's been.
The weekend when this all occurred, I think I'd been to as many venues as you can be on the Northern Beaches as one person, and I was just waiting for one of those venues to come up as somewhere where you had to go and get tested. Sure enough, for the first time this year, I went into the Commonwealth Parliamentary Offices last Thursday to talk to Paul Fletcher's team about black spots on the Northern Beaches with phone towers, and that was the one day out in the CBD that someone had tested positive who'd been there. So this morning I went down to Warriewood and with my daughter who'd been with me at the time, and we sat in line, I've got to say, for about an hour. It was a pretty good experience. She laughed at me when I coughed, when I had sticks stuck up my nose, but of course she had her test next. So I suppose that was not wise of her to laugh at me up front.
Yeah, I was about to say, anyone that has had the COVID test will understand exactly what you're saying. It is not a pleasant experience. But just on that, people are lining up for hours in some parts, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours to be tested right across Sydney. But in the Northern Beaches particularly, how have you found the community's response to this, the community spirit, if you will?
Look, can I quote Gus Worland, who when this first came up, he went and stood in line at Mona Vale Hospital for a couple of hours, and I think he tweeted, look, this is frustrating and it's annoying and it's not kind of how I want to spend my Saturday afternoon, but if this helps us get Christmas back, save a neighbour, keep a family member safe, then we're willing to do it. And I've got to say that the Northern Beaches community has just been extraordinary in the last couple of weeks. The number of people who've turned out without complaint have, as you said, stood in line for a couple of hours, waited to get tested, gone home and self-isolated. For people who are calling for mandatory mask wearing, I mean, Gladys Berejiklian and Kerry Chant only had to say, look, we recommend you do it. And from what I could see, there was straight away 100% compliance with that suggestion on the Northern Beaches. We live in a fantastic country with some extraordinary health resources and amongst some extraordinary people who have done so much so right to make sure that we can get this outbreak under control.
Just on that, I believe Brad Hazzard said this morning that he's answered this question at least a few hundred times, but do you think that masks should be mandatory for beyond the Northern Beaches of Sydney at this point in time?
Well, look, let me make 2 points. The first point is, I think that politicians and actors should actually rely on the advice of the medical experts, because they kind of went to university and have studied this for quite some time. And I'm always amazed at certain politicians who tell us to rely on the science of climate change, but don't want to rely on the science of the medical advice when it comes to epidemics. The second thing I would say is that we've seen both here and around the world that when you ask your citizens to comply with a suggestion, they buy into that. When you make it mandatory, then you find that people tend to arc up. I come from a view that you need to trust people, and when you trust them and when you ask them to do something, they're more likely to comply and they're more likely to help you get on with the job. And that's what I think we've observed in New South Wales all of this year. So I'm happy to back the decisions that are being made by the medical experts such as Kerry Chant.
You can certainly appreciate, though, I'm sure, that some people find it difficult to just trust everyday Aussies in the wake of a global pandemic.
Well, look, there is nothing that has happened in my community that has given me any doubt but to reinforce my view that you can trust ordinary Australians. And that's what I'm going to keep doing until someone presents me with evidence otherwise that we shouldn't.
What about moving in regional parts? There's still no talk at this stage. Obviously, we are all waiting to hear what Gladys has to say tomorrow morning about how Christmas is looking for us. But do you think it would be safer to keep Sydney in a bit of a travel bubble at this point in time to protect regional parts of the state?
Look, we have to be driven, that decision has to be driven by the science, by the medical experts and by the data. If the data continues the trend that it has today and over the last few days, and the testing numbers remain where they are, then you would have to be pretty hopeful that Sydney should be, or people of Sydney should be able to go and visit family and friends at Christmas. That's not to get ahead of what happens tomorrow. That's just simply to say that if the data doesn't support a total lockdown, then why would you actually force that on people, especially at this time of year?
I heard one of the reporters ask this question during this morning's press conference with the Premier. Christmas is a hugely important day. We love Christmas. Of course, we would all love to be with our families. But are we risking a potential further outbreak or something much more disastrous by prioritising this one day?
Look, I don't think that anyone in the New South Wales government would take any risk with the health of the community at large. We are all cognisant of the fact that Christmas is on Friday. As the Premier pointed out yesterday, she knows that in many faiths, Christmas Eve is almost more important than Christmas Day itself. So, look, that is obviously in the back of minds of a lot of people. However, this decision is being driven by the science, by the medical experts, and by the data that comes forward. And I ask those people who are asking those questions, do we really just want to lock people up for no good reason at all when the science, the experts, and the data doesn't support locking people up?
Well, that is a very good question, and one I'm sure we'll be discussing for quite some time. My last question to you, Jason, is anyone in the family watching this, do they know what they're getting for Christmas right behind you right now? I don't want to give anything away.
No. Unfortunately, my daughter, who is getting a surfboard and knows she's getting a surfboard because it had to be fitted for her, insisted that it get wrapped anyway. But my touch is the silver bow on the top. I've been told that that's ridiculous, but I like it. So,
Oh, look, well done to you for even wrapping that up. That's fantastic. And thank you so much.
I had help.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, Jason. Wishing you all the best over the Christmas period with you and your family. Fingers crossed that it's only good news from here for the Northern Beaches and beyond.
Thank you, and to you too. So stay positive and try to test negative. Thank you.